Hello everybody, welcome back. This time we're going to talk a little bit about kitchen design and measuring. Now as you can see, this is a brand new built house, no kitchen involved. The kitchen space is there, so now I'm going to go through the basics of what to measure, what to keep track of. So all you need, tape measure, pen or pencil, piece of paper. Now this piece of paper happens to be a worksheet that I put together for the client so that when I'm talking about special cabinets, different finishes, what they actually want to see, then I have that on the other side. So I try to keep it all together. So let's get started. Basically what you need first is the overall outlay. So you can see that it's almost a galley-like kitchen. Cabinets, on the left, you can see the pantry door on the left side over here. And then it goes around. Now, I know there's no cabinets on the left wall up into the pantry, but there's cabinets all across the back wall and then all the way on this right wall to a certain point. And where that is, I'm not sure. So that's where the design will come in and we'll get it approved depending on where they want that last cabinet. So first thing, take everything over to the wall and just start measuring. First thing you want to do is measure from this point to the wall and across and back. Now notice that there's trim here on the side. If there's no trim, make sure that you leave a couple of inches, at least 3, probably even 4 inches. There are different widths of trim. Now in this case, I'm not too worried about running into it, simply because the cabinets will come out about 2 feet from this wall. I have no intention of putting anything right here up to this trim. So this measurement can be exact, 64.5, but I'm not worried about butting into it. So as you can see, I wrote a very rough sketch of the kitchen. Here's the pantry over here, and that line will continue on. Though again, the only walls that get cabinets will be here and here. There's a window here that I'll measure in just a second. But for now, I have my 64.5, and now we measure across, get it as accurate as you can. When you're measuring a large wall by yourself, it's difficult to keep this tape measure out. At some point, it just falls to the floor and you lose your measurement. So there's 2 main ways to do it. I can either measure on the floor, and if you do measure on the floor, make sure, since there's no trim on it, that the tip of your tape measure doesn't fall underneath the sheetrock. You'll lose a ½ inch. Otherwise, put it against the wall, hold it up as long as you can, and there's even a wire there that I could base it on, but be careful with that, and just press it against the wall and work your way across. This is 149.5. Now that method you have to be careful of, simply because as it falls, it's easy to lose your spacing. It'll shift. So make sure you get as accurate as possible. Then measure down from this wall to the next door. Now I know the cabinets aren't going that far down, but I need to have a measurement for it anyway. Now as you can see, I'm putting it on the floor simply because this wall is huge, but I need to remember to subtract that ½ inch sheetrock because my tape measure went underneath the sheetrock. Now we measure for the window. We need to know exactly where the trim is because we know no cabinets can go to that point, and we need to know our height to make sure all the cabinets and sink and so forth fit correctly. Okay, so I put my measurements on there. It's 68.5 to the trim. And then from trim to trim, outside of the trim each way is 66. And so that's just something you can either mark it on there or just remember that that's what you're measuring. I have my height from 45 inches off the floor to 101.5. And then whatever this space is, I don't need to know it because I'm not going to build cabinets to that far down. The next step is to start measuring for all of the outlets and gas and everything that's going to be behind a cabinet, to make sure you know where they go, including the ones that won't even be covered, because I want to make sure that I'm not covering it with some cabinet, whether it's a pantry cabinet, and make sure that there's counter space where the outlets are. Other things are outlet on the floor for the oven and gas that's sticking out of the wall. Make sure the oven is in the right place so it can plug into that area. So you just make marks on it, measuring from one reference wall, it doesn't matter which one, and reference over and just mark on there where they are and their height, especially for this one where the microwave goes. Now every house that's built, the new house, the architect does put in a general kitchen, so everything is marked where it has to go, like the oven and like the sink. The plumbing's already there. So that does tell you where certain things go, though I do have some leeway left and right. So get those as exact as you can so you know where that leeway is. When I measure for plumbing, you can see on here, I've drawn the pipes. There's a large pipe and two small ones right under the window. So I draw a large pipe and two small ones. All I really need to know is the distance from the wall to this edge of the pipe and then to this edge of the pipe. So I measured them both at 86 and 107. A cabinet needs to cover all of it. So I can't have a half cabinet here and there. That would be really problematic later on. So as long as I know extreme here to extreme there, I'm fine. The last thing I measured right there on the floor is here is the outlet for the fridge. Okay, you can always tell because it's going to be next to a water line or it's at the end, or there are other ways you can tell. But it's the water that I need to make sure. So the fridge has to stay right here so it covers both the water and the outlet. Now that alone will limit how far down I'm coming towards this door, and that's what I needed. I needed to know I cannot come any farther than just to the edge, that 156 inches where the water is. So I need to be able to cover all that. But now as you can see, it's messy, but I've got all the measurements for all the outlets and the plumbing. Only thing left, make sure to measure the ceiling height. It's best to measure the ceiling in a couple different places to make sure there's no bowing. The last thing we're going to talk about, now that we have our ceiling height, is there is going to be an island right here in the middle. Now islands can vary in sizes. We know we have 24-inch cabinets, and normally there's an overhang of 10 or 12 inches from here to here, 10 to 12. How wide this is will also depend on where the end of the fridge goes, like we mentioned. So I may bring the island out even further to match the edge of that. That is between you and the person you're making it for. And as we design, we will make sure that the distances between the cabinets is correct so that you're not bumping into each other. To help with figuring out where this island is going to go, depending on what the architect has already designed, if you look up, you can see some lights in the ceiling. And while you need a ladder to actually get up there to measure it exactly, but just getting it pretty close is better than nothing. So even just taking a tape measure and just eyeballing your vertical and saying there's a light here and a light here will help you center this. You want it pretty centered on the light so that the light is coming in the right place. But now that you have all of your information that you need, now we can move on to the design phase.